I want to share with you a fairly typical drum production. It's quite a simple one for me. I've just got two layers, a drum machine and a breakbeat. This is a track that I'm working on at the moment. I'm pretty sure it's going to go on my next album. So yeah, it's quite upbeat. Like I said, it's a simple one, probably won't take too long to go through it. Just wanted to show how I lay out my drums. So this first layer is a drum machine. I've got some sounds selected in here. The selection's quite an important part. You know, this track is a techno, so I've gone for some drum machine sounds, 909 kick, most of the others are from the 808, and then a cowbell sound. Let me actually demo all of those now. Drum machines by themselves can be a bit sterile. The good thing about layering a breakbeat underneath them is you get the groove of a real drummer with all of the dynamics and all of the timings of a real drummer, and just have that layered in the background can really add a lot. I've got a filter on here because I just don't want it to introduce any mud. With a track like this, you want that punchy sound of the drum machine to come through, obviously the kick, and I've got a square wave bass here, which is very full on sound, so just trying to keep this sounding thin. All I want is the little high frequency sounds. I've basically tuned the filter so that it doesn't thin out the snare drum, but it does take out the low if I turn that off. See, that's a lot more boomy. And there it's very controlled. So when I layer that with, if I solo the kick drum and the breakbeat, so that's just totally moving out the way for the kick drum, so that's all nice. So with the drum machine, it's just one-shot samples from drum machines in controlled by MIDI. And if I look into the MIDI track, so let's get into some of the sequencing aspect of this drum production here. Snares on the 2 and 4 with the occasional little fill in there, that's quite standard. The kick is doing something a bit syncopated here, you know, this isn't a 4 on the floor. With percussion sounds, you can kind of do what you want with those, go crazy and syncopate things. In this case, I kind of have a polymeter going on here where the pattern repeats after 7 16th notes. For the rim shot sound, that repeats at 5 16th notes, so it just gives kind of that poly kind of sound. We have this pattern here with the hi-hats that just repeats, but the hi-hats sometimes they're open for the entire duration and sometimes they're quite staccato. That adds a bit more variety. And that transition from from the short to the long notes, I'm kind of doing that on the 4. So, you know, not everything has to be on the 1. There are some other weird kind of rhythmic aspects to this track where I have an extra bar of 1/4 that's placed at different points, and it just kind of trips you up a little bit. I don't think it's too obscene. Here's an interesting thing. So I've started using a clipper on my drum bus. So this is AD Clip 7 from Air Windows, and it kind of has a sound. It's not kind of clean here. It's actually smashing it quite a lot. I've got an oscilloscope here to show you. So if I just play that everything. Yeah, so all those transients are just cut off. It's extremely controlled. If I turn off the clipper. And like it's really noticeable at this end section here when I have like because if you have a kick and a snare playing at the same time, it really kind of overloads the it overloads the clipper, but it has this nice it has a sound that I think is appropriate for this style that sounds a bit smashed. You know, with all those drums going on at the same time, it is sounding a bit smashed. And you know, you can control that with this. This clipper's got this control called Enhance, and I've got more Enhance here than in Blade Runner. But if I turn that, hang on, if I solo the kick, right, you'll definitely hear. That sounds clean. When you turn that Enhance all the way up, I'm not sure exactly what it's doing, but it seems that some of the low frequency energy that's causing that clip kind of gets like pushed up into the mids or something like that. So it kind of has a busy sound, and I kind of like it in the context of this track. I wouldn't normally do that, but you know, I want this track to be loud, I want it to be aggressive, so kind of smashing the drums there. It's really going to help later on when it gets to mastering, that the peaks are so controlled on this drum bus with that clipper. So we're getting a sound that way. So what else have we got? What else is on the kick? So I've got my kick sound, just a 909 kick. Yep, cool. What's this snare? 808. Nothing on here, so there's no EQ on the kick or the snare. We just want the plain sound. There's this conga one. Again, no EQ, there's no reverb on that. I'm just checking my sends there. There's no reverb or anything. Rim shot, nope, no EQ, no nothing. Very clear. See, I've gone for a very clean sound this time. Don't always do that, but you know, depending on what sounds you start with, you can kind of do that. Open hi-hat, yep. What have I done with the cowbell? Yes, okay, so I've got no EQ on any of these. That's quite interesting. Just gone for the pure sound from the sample. I mean, you can synthesize your own drums. I know some people that are really keen on synthesizing all their own sounds because they say it makes their sound unique, so they can get their own sound. It's true, you can get exactly the sound you want. But on the other hand, I went to the supermarket today. There were some kids hanging out in the car park listening to whatever music kids listen to today. Still had 808s in it, so it's here to stay for a while longer. So I know that was a very short one, but because I had a very simple drum production there with the minimal layers, I thought this would be a good one to introduce to people who've asked me, you know, how do you do your drums? Like I said, I'm working on a new album. You know, consider joining my Ko-Fi monthly thing if you want some behind the scenes on that. But if not, just stay tuned. There's going to be some more music coming out in the future.